I'm Dr. Diana Hill. I'm a clinical psychologist, and this is the Wise Effort Show. We talk about how to use your energy wisely. And what that means is sometimes going full throttle, dialing your energy up, going full force, all in powerhouse because it's aligned with your values. Sometimes that means dialing it back in areas that are depleting you, that are out of alignment with your values, or are harmful to you in some way, or just kind of off target in terms of where you want to be going with your life. Crises, catastrophes, things falling apart can wake us up to what's most important to us. We are more sensitive when you get a cancer diagnosis or when your partner says they want a divorce, or you find out that your best friend is having an affair, right? All these things that kind of wake us up to what matters. Crises can clarify things. So, the first tip that I want to give you if you're going through a crisis, things are falling apart, the first thing I want you to remember is it's a choice point, it's an opening. It's in these moments of things falling apart that then we have the opportunity to get out of things that don't work for us, to start things that we didn't even know that we could start, to have creative solutions to things that we would never have thought of if we hadn't gone through this. So see this as the great opening up of your life. Not necessarily good. I know it's painful. I know it's hard. You don't have to like it. I don't want to say that it's, in a Pollyanna way that everything is going to be better, but there's a waking up that happens because of this. So we wake up, and this is your first task, I guess, if things are falling apart, is to recognize this is an opportunity for me to wake up and see what is possible that I didn't see was possible before. When things fall apart, we also need to pay attention to our psychological first aid, is what they call it in my world. If I were going down to the Los Angeles fires right now, we would be doing what's called psychological first aid. And it's not what you think. The difference between psychological first aid and therapy is that psychological first aid can be done by therapists, but it's also done by frontline workers and counselors and pretty much anyone that can get trained up in it. And you go in and you say things to a person who's in crisis. You say things like, "Can I get you a blanket? Do you have warm clothes to wear? Where are you headed after this?" Psychological first aid is not about forcing anyone to talk or to go into the depths of their experience or find any meaning in any of this, except for just let's do the next best thing for you. So psychological first aid is different from therapy in that sense of timing, but also in the sense of the type of intervention that you're doing. And you can provide psychological first aid to yourself when you're going through a crisis by doing things and saying things like, do I need to go outside and go for a walk? When was the last time that I brushed my teeth? Do I need to wash my hair? Do I have food in the fridge? Do I need to call a friend? Do I have resources to get through the next week? What's on my plate today? And breaking things down into really small, tiny pieces. Give yourself some psychological first aid before you have to get into the depths of meaning and values and all of that. Okay, so step one is to know that because you are in a crisis, because everything is falling apart, small or big, it's okay, either one, you are more awake, or you have the potential to be more awake. Number two, give yourself a little psychological first aid. Make sure your basic needs are met. Number three, when everything feels like it's falling apart, the ground is out from under you, a tip I would give you is let yourself fall. I know this sounds counterintuitive. We don't want to fall apart. We don't want to come undone. Actually, that's one of my very favorite books, Wally Lamb. I read it so many times when I was in college, I think, college or graduate school. She's Come Undone by Wally Lamb because I loved the concept of coming undone. I think it's a fabulous idea. If things are falling apart, might as well come undone. And coming undone, falling apart, letting yourself fall is actually the natural course of things. In The Art of Living, Thich Nhat Hanh writes about this when he writes about the leaf that falls from a tree and how a leaf doesn't cling, it doesn't worry about the fall. It lets go and it lets itself fall to the ground. And then it actually turns into the nourishment for the tree, right? It turns into the compost for the tree and moves back into the tree again. This is the course of life. This is things falling apart and coming back together. This is seasons. This is what is going to happen over and over and over again for us. But when we let ourselves fall, what we're doing in that practice is we're letting go of what we cannot control. And in stress research, there's a real distinction between what you can control and what you can't control. I almost want to create a 2-column list for you, or you could make a 2-column list for yourself. I'll have clients do this sometimes. Very simple. One side of the list, what can I control? Other side of the list, what can I not control? And on the side of what can I not control, that's where you let yourself come undone a little. Let it go. Let yourself fall. Be the leaf. Lean back. The things that you cannot control. You can't control your inner experiences. You can't control grief. We know that emotion suppression makes emotions worse. We can control, on the can control side, our responses. We can control with what we do with our speech, our wise actions. I'm thinking about my good friend, Jenny Schatzel, who runs Bond Fitness here. And she opened up her gym to people that are evacuated, but she's also raising money for folks that are impacted by the wildfires. And she's like, yeah, money is what they need. And this is what I can do, right? I have a gym. I'm good at what I do. I have a Venmo QR code. I put it in the gym and people are donating. And she's raised $10,000 in just a few days. That's what she can control. So we can let ourselves go, while also having our compass on the things that we can control. So we're awake. We practice psychological first aid. First, tend to those things that you need to tend to, just your basic needs. And then let yourself come undone a little bit so you can put your energy into the things that you can control. And there are some things that you do have agency around, even when you're completely falling apart. All right, the fourth thing that you can do when things fall apart, and probably one of the most important things that you can do, is let yourself feel the broad range of experiences that you may feel. I did a little post for Instagram on this about all the different feelings that I was hearing in my office from people in the Los Angeles area. And they were everything from horror, devastation, oneness, gratitude, friendship, panic, hope, right? The whole mix of it, grief, regret, guilt. It is the human condition to have all of these feelings. And every single one of those feelings has a function to it. Every single one of them. Some of them are socially oriented feelings. We feel guilt that we're not doing more to motivate us to do more, to help people, right? We feel hope to keep us going when things are kind of hopeless, right? We feel grief because grief is a social emotion that draws people in. We cry to communicate that we're hurting, so someone may come in and offer us comfort. Panic. We panic to get ourselves out of dangerous situations. It's a useful thing. So all of our emotions can be useful in certain contexts. And the first thing you need to do is be able to feel them in your body, but not be so overwhelmed by them that you are paralyzed by them. So you allow yourself to feel, but the you that's the feeler is like an observer. It's a wise you that's feeling the experience, but not the whole experience itself. I often use the analogy of the sky with the weather system coming through, right? So there's a sky and the weather system of whatever your experience is, you can make space for. So you let yourself feel. And then finally, know that you aren't alone. Whatever you are feeling, someone else is feeling somewhere else on the planet right now. Whatever crisis you're going through, somebody has gone through a similar crisis as you. And there are people that are here to support you, even if they are strangers, even if they're people that you don't know. We are a social species. We care for each other. We have huge swaths of our body and our brain that are dedicated to compassion. And you can receive the compassion from others, including me. I'm here for you. One of my favorite practices to do that is where you imagine loving faces, faces of a spiritual figure, faces of a stranger that you've appreciated, your kindergarten teacher, your whoever, your favorite dog, your favorite yoga teacher, all surrounding you and looking at you with love and compassion and support. And you take in all of that compassion. Take it in. Let it resource you. All right. So those are my tips for when things fall apart. They may not be the usual tips that you get, but they're helpful to me. I hope they're helpful to you in this little mini Wise Effort episode. Maybe well. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Wise Effort podcast. Wise Effort is about you taking your energy and putting it in the places that matter most to you. And when you do so, you'll get to savor the good of your life along the way. If you would like to become a member of the Wise Effort podcast, go to wiseeffort.com. And if you like this episode and think it would be helpful to somebody, please leave a review over at Podchaser. I would like to thank my team, my partner in all things, including the producer of this podcast, Craig, Ashley Hyatt, the podcast manager, and thank you to Ben Gold at Bell & Branch for our music. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and it's not meant to be a substitute for mental health treatments.